Money Talks, and we're talking about money in church. Is awesome. It's already awkward, right? It's already like when you talk about money, it immediately people just kind of get on edge because you have there's a couple ways you respond, and either way though, it's awkward. Like so, sometimes what happens is people will come into a church and like when you hear they're talking about money, your mind goes to one of two places. It goes to the money talks or services you've seen on TV, like the prosperity churches and gospels where they're like, give your money and you'll be blessed. And if you don't give, you won't be blessed, but give more and you'll get more blessed. And so give to the church. And I've been in those kind of situations where like I went to a service once and it was like, I didn't know going into it that's what it was gonna be, and a friend who invited a group of us to go, and we're like, all right, we'll go to this church because it was a guest speaker or whatever, and it was one of those talks, and I had no idea it was like a giving, prosperity, like give money to the church talk. And I remember like they're really good, like not, sorry, that they're terrible, but they're effective. like they're really good in that, like, wow, like they make you feel like you should do this. And I remember my friend, who she didn't have much money, but she gets up and I'm like, okay, I know I'm no going in this. I'm not going up to do this. I know this is like they're, you know, like they do the whole like 10 of you have $10,000 you need to give, and so come up here and you know ushers lock the doors before they can leave, and so we're gonna do that later this morning. No, I'm just kidding. Of course not, never. But I remember being like, okay, this is one of those where like, all right, you gotta give. All right, I'm feeling uncomfortable. And I remember she goes up and I'm like, what? I know she doesn't have money. Like she literally told me like, can you buy me lunch later? Because I have no money. I'm like, what are you gonna give? And she's like, I have a pen. She gave her pen. I'm like, you gave your pen. Like, I'm not buying you a new one. And it was this like, I felt compelled to give. I'm going, man. And so when you talk about church and money, you have that instinct where you're like, all right, it's gonna be one of those. And either you like it or not, right? Either it's like, yeah, I want to give. Okay, great. It's like a big, like energy service. All right, give. Or you come in and you go, oh, heck no. Your arms folded and you're like, oh, we're talking about money? Great, of course. The church, yet again, church talking about money. They want more money. They don't have enough money and they just ask for money. And you're like, man, that was the last church service I'll go to. And you know people like that. Maybe you are a person like that. I have family members who are like, they won't go to church because of the money thing in church. And here's the deal. We're talking about money. We're doing that here. Now, we're gonna approach this totally different, I hope, than what you're like expecting. But money is awkward. It's awkward to talk about. And if you don't believe me, just watch this. We'll see some interviews on the street of just how awkward talking about money can be. Watch this.
Hey everybody, we are here on the street. We are going to be asking strangers questions about their favorite thing to be open and candid about, their money, and the personal decisions they make with their money. What could go wrong? Oh, people, excuse me, sir, ma'am, can I ask you guys a couple of questions? Do we have cameras over here? Sure. If we could turn, it's not going to be anything too personal, I promise. How much money do you guys make annually?
That's not personal.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a pharmacist.
A pharmacist. How much money do you make as a pharmacist?
It's decent.
But like, how much money though?
Oh, we want to throw the real numbers.
Real numbers. This is a real video, real numbers.
It pays rent.
How much money do you make? In like a year.
I'm not comfortable sharing these information with anyone else.
Why not? Why won't you just tell me the number? Like, it's just us.
I mean, it's pretty good.
Okay, you're not gonna tell me. That's fine. I thought we were friends.
All right. So every week there's more of this interview and we'll see more clips, and it's just awkward. When you talk about money, can you imagine someone coming to you on the street and be like, hey, how much money do you make? Like, I don't know of a more personal question you could ask than how much money you make. And why is that? It's just a number. What does it matter? It's just a way to gauge, like, if you're like what kind of work you do. Like, who cares how much money you make? But if we were to do that right now, in fact, turn to your neighbor and tell them, you're like, heck no, I'll never come back to this church. Because there's something about money that we go, ooh, this just hits different. It feels different. And one of the reasons is this. We often use or define or think of money as a sense of security or importance or value in someone. even in ourselves. We tend to think we are more valuable if we make more money, have more money. We tend to think someone else is more valuable if they have more money, make more money. And same with security. We feel like we have more security if we have more money, then if life gets crazy, we'll be okay. So let's just pursue more money. More money is more security and more safety, more fulfillment, more value, more importance. And especially in today's culture, it is so tied to our identity. We're taught that worth increases as our bank increases. So just to illustrate this, let me just put two pictures in front of your mind and see, like, just without any description, just your natural reaction, all right? You're going to two different friends' homes for dinner in a week, and you've never been there before, and you're driving up first time, and you see their home. What are you doing? You are making judgments. I know you are. Absolutely. You won't say it, right? So you show up to house number one, and house number one is a nice home. It's quaint, it's cozy, but it's smaller. It's 1,200 square feet. Maybe we'll go 1,500, and you're like, okay, and it's a small yard, and all right, they have a nice home. All right, it's a fine home. It's nothing wrong. It's great. All right. And then the next day or 2 days later, you go to another home and you drive up, and they've got a private gate and a long driveway and some really nice paver designs. If you've ever laid pavers, I've done it once and will only do it once. You know how crazy that is. Like, oh wow, let's look at it. They got multiple car garages and like a large home and like clearly like they have. This is how you know if it's a big home, if they have more bathrooms than your house has bedrooms. You're like, this is a home, okay. You show up, all right, what are you thinking? All right, wow, they're successful, wealthy, valuable. Okay, these are important people. Now, you've not stepped foot in, you don't, all right, now, what if I told you, okay, more information about their homes. Now, right now, I can ask you this, which would you want to be? Which would you rather have? Now, none of you are gonna answer any of my questions during a money series because you don't wanna sound greedy. But I know you are. It would be hard. It would be hard for any of us to say, I'll pick the small home, please. If you can have the two. Okay, now, if you're gonna trade lives though, what if I told you this? The smaller home has a family, mom and dad and a couple kids, and they're happy. They love each other. The kids are playing, they have friends on the street, and they're outside kicking a ball. She's going, oh, okay, this is the kind of family that I want to have. Like, this is what I want for my kids or my grandkids, and they are just so grateful for what they have. On the other side, right, this large home, you know more about this family, and I've known people like this that have broken homes and dealing with all kinds of turmoil in the family, and I know I've been to home and like they're on, have had multiple relationships end and start up, and it's like, okay, and there's always frustration and chaos. All right, now who do you want to trade places with? It's easy, right? It's easy. You see, things change when you realize that there are things that are more important than money. That there are things more important and more valuable and for us more desiresome than just more stuff. Because what can come with the stuff, like, all right, if I don't do I want all of that other extra stuff with it? Now, in this series, we're gonna be talking about money, and it's not the like, here's why you give, or no. What we're looking at instead is what Scripture has to say about how we should view and use money. So here's, right out the gate, here's the thing that we're gonna look at this morning. Money can add meaning to your life. It can, it absolutely can. Anyone to tell you anything different doesn't have money and doesn't know how to spend it. But money can add meaning to your life. Absolutely it can. But it's not the meaning of life. That's an important distinction. It can certainly add value to your life based on how you do it and how you use it. But listen, it's not the meaning of life. The point of your life is not to die with the most amount of money. That's not the point. The goal is not accumulate. Like he who dies with the most toys wins. And you're like, oh, that's really funny, but you're dead. You don't get any of the toys. Like the goal is not that I live for money, but rather I make money live for me. I make my money work for me. This is a big distinction, and we're gonna talk about, we're gonna look at a parable that Jesus gives about money. Now, this is a weird stat. Jesus has a different take on money, certainly, than culture, and it's extremely countercultural. Jesus shares there's 38 parables in the Gospels that Jesus, that we have recorded that he speaks. 38 parables. These are like stories that he uses as points of teaching and making a point. All right. Of the 38 parables, 16 are about money and possessions. 40% of what Jesus talked about in his parables was about money. In fact, Jesus talked more about money than he did heaven. Did you know that? He brings up more about resources and possessions than he does about heaven. That's crazy. Why does Jesus do this? And some of these parables that he shares, you're going, this is weird. This one this morning we're gonna look at, honestly, this hits us and you're going like, I don't think this is this is not the story I would have given to talk about money. And Jesus, this is kind of confusing. And Jesus uses a very surprising character to make a point, and you're going, that's the guy you picked? That's the guy that's supposed to teach us something? Money can add meaning to your life, but it's not the meaning of life. So here's what we're gonna see. The first thing we're gonna see in this parable in Luke chapter 16 is this. According to Jesus, money, my money, your money, my money is a tool. It's something that you have at your disposal. Like a tool in a tool belt. All right, I have this thing that I can use in my life called money. My money is a tool. Here we go. Starting at verse 1, Jesus is gonna give this parable, and it's just, it ends, and you're going, this is just odd, Jesus. Verse 1, Jesus told his disciples, there was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be manager any longer. So Jesus introduces the two characters, the two of the story. There's the rich man, this guy who's overseeing, the owner, the master, and then there's his manager who's been in charge of, clearly, of managing his money. And he says, hey, listen, you've been accused of wasting my stuff, of mismanaging my money. I need you to give account because you can't do this in your life. This is true, you're out. All right, so here we go. That's the plot. It's about to thicken, so they say. The manager said to himself, what shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. And here's what he says, I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. Here's what he says, I don't have skills to do anything else. I'm not strong enough. I haven't been trained. I can't be, I can't use my hands for work, and I can't beg. What am I gonna do? Because I'm losing my job as a manager. Good job, good paying job, security, I got it. What am I gonna do? Now, what do you do if you're the rich man, if you're the master, if you're the business owner and you find out you have a manager who's been mismanaging your business, your funds, your product, whatever you're selling, whatever it is, someone like, wow, they've been skimming off the top, okay. It doesn't take long for you to call them in and say, we're done here, right? This is clearly a person with low ethics and makes very bad decisions. Verse 4 says this, I know what I'll do, so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses. All right, I have an idea. I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna lose my job, but when I lose my job, I still want people to say, all right, hey, you can come with us, we'll help you out. Or I still have people that will at least have a little bit of pity on me so that they can help me out. I still have friends, probably in low places, but I got friends. Verse 5, so he called in each one of the master's debtors. He asked the first one, how much do you owe my master? 900 gallons of olive oil, he replied. To which I'm going, that's a lot of olive oil. What can you, like, we have a thing, yeah, you do this. You bought an olive oil and you're like, this little bottle is gonna last us 10 years. Like 900 gallons? Okay, so this is clearly a high amount of product, a high volume sale. This is probably another business. All right, so this is not just a guy who's like, oh, I like olive oil. And like, all right, you owe, that's how much you owe. That's not even how much you like buy and sell. Like, that's how much you owe him. That's how much you're in debt. Okay, the manager told him, take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 450. Cut it in half. All right. Here's the equivalent for you. Whatever you have let's just say you have a mortgage and you owe money on your home. All right, let's just say you owe 900,000 on your home. I don't know, maybe you do, maybe you don't, all right? And he cuts it in half. All right, you know what? The bank just says, hey, you now owe 450. Are you serious? Are you kidding me? That guy is now your favorite person in the world. You can do this? Yeah, I can do this. All right, just don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone, but we're just gonna cut it in half. Are you sure this is okay? I'm telling you, this is okay. This is okay. It's fine. He cuts it in half. Whoa, thank you. Okay, I only owe 450 gallons of olive oil. All right, let's go get some olive trees and get to work. Verse 7, then he asked a second, how much do you owe? 1,000 bushels of wheat, he replied. Okay, another guy, I don't know how much, a bushel of wheat, 1,000 of those? Okay, that's a lot. This guy, clearly, he owes a lot, right? This is another high volume. All right, he owes a lot. And he says this, he told him, take your bill and make it 800. Now, the first thing that I'm thinking is, how come I didn't get half off? Right? Now, maybe he's not there the same time as the first guy. He probably doesn't hear it. All he knows this, hey, you owe 1,000. We're cutting off 20%. Make it 800, right? It's gone. What, you can do that? Yeah, I can do that, no problem. Wow, thank you so much. This is, wow, thank you. And then it says this. We're gonna get to verse 8, and in this story, as you're reading this, you're going, this guy's done. This guy, as the kids say, this guy is cooked. This guy, the manager, there's no way the manager is gonna be able to justify what he's done to his owner. There's no way that the rich man, the master, will look at him and go, hey, well done. And then Jesus says this. This is where it gets crazy, and you go, what? The master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. Here's what Jesus says in this story. This bad guy, this dishonest manager, hey, good job. What? What do you mean, good job, attaboy? What? How could you possibly commend him for mismanaging not just money, your money? He's mismanaging your stuff. The master commended the dishonest manager because he acted shrewdly. Because he saw in him, hey, that was actually really smart. Why didn't I think of that? That was really wise of you. And then Jesus says this is like crazy. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of the light. Here's what Jesus says. Hey, the people of the world are actually wiser with how they manage and handle money and how they handle people than the people of the light, than the followers of God, than the church. That this dishonest manager has something to teach us about being shrewd. Jesus, I'm sure you could have found a better character for your story to teach us a lesson, the dishonest manager. And then Jesus says this, and this again sets up, I think, the foundation for kind of what we're doing in this whole series, but also as we think about and talk about money. Jesus says this, and this is crazy. And this is how this comes from Jesus. So like, all right, we have permission to do this very thing. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Do you know what Jesus just said? Do you know what he just said? Use your money to go buy friends. That's what he said. Use your money to gain friends for yourselves so that that relationship will carry over into the next life. Are you kidding me, Jesus? So hold on. I'm supposed to think about my money not in buying stuff, but investing in people? Now, here's what Jesus, let's be clear. What Jesus isn't commending is his dishonesty, but rather his wise understanding that he can use his money to help build and invest in relationships for later down the road. And he does so selfishly, and he says, wow, hey, this guy was actually wise. We can learn, you guys in church, we can learn a thing or two from this guy about how to use money to invest in people. Not in the dishonesty part, but rather, all right, he saw the importance of money and possessions, and especially debt, as a means to invest in relationships. That's different. You're not gonna get that in culture today. You're not gonna go to a bank and have them tell you, you know what you should use your money on? People. You should go give it to people and invest in people. Jesus, he uses the story to shake up our assumptions. And he does so by pointing out that this manager believed he could gain something valuable by strategically using his resources. So, are you and I strategically using our resources? Now, let's talk about this. There's questions that we can ask, and you know, anytime you are using your money and spending money and making financial decisions, some things are going through your head, right? You have some criteria, some questions, and whether it's conscious or subconscious or you just do it automatically, there are things that you're thinking about in your head, and oftentimes, this is a lifetime of learned things that you're just going through as you're about to spend money. Because you and I, we spend money, we use money every single day. There's money coming in, money going out every single day of your life. And so here's what you need to ask. Ready? Do I want more stuff? Do you want to use your money for more stuff? Or, according to what Jesus is saying here, do I want more stories? And when we say stories, what we're talking about is how that money was used to bless or invest or give or help someone else. A story about how that money was spent, what it did, what it went towards, and what it was able to accomplish. Do I want more stuff, or do I want more stories? Now, this comes out in one place, never fail, every single time. Every single time this service happens, we see the difference. You see this dichotomy of stuff versus stories. And this happens always, never fail at funerals. At funerals, people get up to talk about the person who's passed away, and what do they share? Stories. You know what they don't do? They don't pull out a bank statement and say, look how much money he left us. Look at her net worth. Wow. People talk about stories. So, it might be kind of morbid, but I want you to think about this. One day, you too are gonna pass away. It's gonna happen. And there's gonna be a service about you somewhere and somehow, and people are gonna come, and here's what they're gonna do. They're gonna share stories about you. And here's that's the good news. The good thing is people are gonna talk about you. Here's the bad news, ready? You don't get to decide what stories they share. They just are gonna talk about you, and you hope they pick the good ones and they forget about the bad ones. But here's what you get to decide. You get to decide the pool of stories they get to choose from, the kind of things that they get to tell about you. That you were always about stuff, or you were always about people. And even in your finances, you didn't want more stuff. Not that stuff's bad or evil, but it's just an accumulation of stuff or an accumulation of stories. I've been at multiple, I've been to certainly funerals. I've done funerals and officiated and helped. And so, all right, so I've been around this enough to see the different kinds of stories that people share. And the one that strikes me the most is actually one of the hardest ones. There was a gentleman who passed away, and he was older, and the son-in-law was the one kind of overseeing and doing the service. and everything was fine. A lot of people came, and there were stories about him, and they talked about him, and all kinds of stuff. And then after the service, he came and talked to me one-on-one. He said, hey, I learned something going through this. And he said, I love my father-in-law. He was a great guy, but I realized I don't want to live how he lived. And this man was, he might be one of the wealthiest people I know I've ever met. And he goes, all the stories that people shared were work stories, and none of them were family stories. It was all about, he was a workaholic and was always there when he was at the business and helping people, grow in their business and making more money and the next thing and the promotion and always. And then he retired, and then 6 months later, that was it. He was done. He didn't even get to enjoy the nest egg that he had built his entire life. And he goes, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be known for always being the guy who just always works. And then every story is a work story. Jesus is telling us here to use your money while you are still alive on earth to invest in more stories, in people, not in more stuff. Do you want more stuff, or do you want more stories? According to Jesus, my money is a tool. It's a tool that I get to use, and I get to decide how I use it. More stuff or more stories. Invest in more people. Here's the next thing that we see. According to Jesus, my money is a test. It's not just a tool to be used, but it's also, he's gonna tell us, a test. And your money says something about you. How you spend and use and how you handle money says something about you. Just like this money manager, we have a little bit of money for a short amount of time. And what we do with it indicates whose kingdom we're devoted to. So I don't know how much money you have in your bank account. You could pull it up and here's your number and here's the debt and here's how much you own. All right, and all of us have different numbers and we're at different spots, and that's fine, great. But listen, whatever you have, it's peanuts. When you compare it to the economy or even just the amount of money in our city or our state or our country, certainly the world, what you have is peanuts, is nothing. And the amount of time you get to live is not very long. Jesus was here 2,000 years ago. You'll be lucky to make 100. You don't have a lot of time to spend this little amount of money. So Jesus, just like this manager, says, all right, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with the money that you have and the time that you have to manage it? Here's what he says in verse 10, right after this, right after giving this parable, he says this. Here's the point, he's summarizing now. Here's the take home. All right, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. If you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? He makes a distinction. And if you've not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who's gonna give you property of your own? Now, here's what Jesus is saying. Ready? And I think you know this. You probably know this. But when you die, none of it goes with you. None of it. Here's what that means. Ready? This is a crazy thought, okay? I know we're talking about money, but here we go. We're talking about death. When you die, all of your stuff, all of it goes to somebody else. Those thieves, they just take your stuff. All of your stuff. Everything you own, everything you can touch and see in your house will belong to someone else or someplace else, namely a dump. And it will go, all of your stuff will go to someone else. And if you have a spouse surviving you, all right, they naturally just take it over. And then when they pass away, it goes to this wonderful experience. It goes to the kids. Hey, honey, look at all of these trinkets we've gathered for you for decades. And the kid just going wow, this is so special. Throw away, bag, dumpster. All of your stuff, all of it, your car, your house, your clothes, your silverware, all of it goes to someone else. Here's what that means. Ready? You ready for this? Are you sitting down? Well, I think you're sitting down. Here's what this means. Ready? You don't own any of it. You don't own any of it. You are managing the stuff you have until it becomes someone else's stuff. You're just managing it. You are this. When Jesus says, if you are trustworthy in a little stuff that you're managing, then you've shown yourself you can be trustworthy in a lot. God can give you more. And if you're dishonest with just a little bit that you have, why would I give you more? How could I possibly give you true riches? You can't even handle the worldly riches. Money then, according to Jesus, is a test. And none of us get to keep it. None of us get to keep it. You and I, then, are not owners of any of our stuff. We're just managing it. You are managing your stuff, your bank account, your cars, your house. If you have other properties, investments, you're just managing all of that to give it, ready? To give it to someone else. That's your life. That's what you do. And some of us get to a point where we say, I just want more stuff. And then you just, when you die, it goes to someone else. And now it's their problem. They get to deal with it. Now, some of us, if you're wise, you understand that. And you're already thinking about that. All right, I don't know how much time I have left. And so I want to be thinking about what happens to my stuff after I'm gone. Who does it go to? How do I manage it? Do I want to, just give it to my kids? Do I want to put it in a trust? Do I want to split it up and help, donate it to certain, maybe nonprofits or organizations? All right, and if you're thinking about that, awesome, because you're already thinking as a manager, not an owner. And you can do that at any age, where you're thinking about, what do I do with my stuff after I'm gone? I'm managing. I don't own it. And so then that means my money is just a test. How trustworthy or dishonest am I with the little bit of stuff that I have? And then Jesus gives us a third thing in this story. According to Jesus in this parable, my money is a tool, my money is a test, and my money is a temptation, a real temptation. It really is. And this is the thing that we know and we feel, and there is a real temptation to place our worth and even all of our security in our stuff, in our wealth, in our money. Here's what Jesus says, verse 13. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. You can't do it. This is the only time where Jesus says this, where you can't serve God and something else. He says that you can't serve God and money. You got to pick. You have to pick. And here's how you choose. The way you choose which one you serve, God or money, is how you spend your money. That's how you choose. That's how you decide which one you serve. Because you all have money. You're going to have money, different degrees, but we all have money coming in and going out. Hopefully more coming in than goes out, right? If more goes out than comes in, that's a problem. But there's money going on in your life, and so you get to decide then how you use it. And how you use it will determine and will be a loud statement as to who you serve, God or more money, just a little bit more money. Please, a little more. Verse 14, it says this, the Pharisees, and we give a little insight, who loved money, heard this, and they were sneering at Jesus. What we believe about money affects our identity, and money itself doesn't give us meaning. It's what we believe and what we do with it that adds value and meaning to our life. And you decide, do I want more stuff or do I want more stories? Do I just want more things and acquire more? Or do I want to say, man, how can I use my money, man, to help and to build into other people? When Jesus says, use your worldly wealth to gain friends, all right, how are we doing that as a family? Maybe you're married, maybe you have kids, maybe you're by yourself, and how are you using your finances to say, all right, I want to invest in more people? As Christians, we're called to find our security in God and not in anything else, certainly not in wealth. And in this week in particular, this Tuesday in particular, is it's a big day. Have you heard about this day? Do you know what's going on? All right, apparently this is the election to end all elections. That democracy is on the ballot. Did you know that? When I voted, I didn't see it was on there, but I would have voted for it, but it wasn't an option. And it doesn't matter who, like what side you're voting for or who you're voting for, both are saying democracy's on the ballot. If you vote for the other person, democracy's over, which is a funny statement. Isn't that a funny statement? To use democracy to threaten democracy? Like, aren't we voting on this? Like, how is it done? We're literally voting. And here's what's gonna happen. Here's what's gonna happen. This is the temptation we feel. We feel this temptation to say, if our candidate wins, the country will be okay. If our candidate loses, it's gonna be the worst 4 years this country has ever seen. Until the next election, when we hear the same thing again. We get to do this in 4 years. We get to do this whole thing again. Isn't that exciting? It's so fun. There is such a desire to place our hope and our future into anything else other than the Lord. And this week, you're gonna see it on the news, and if you voted, I hope you voted. You should vote. It's your right to vote. If you don't, this is honestly what I think. If you don't vote, you don't get to complain. So I vote to complain. That's why I vote. So when it goes wrong, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. You should vote. Now, that being said, don't buy into this temptation or this fear tactic that your person is the savior, that he's gonna save us or she's gonna save us, and it's the only one. I hope you do what I'm gonna do on Wednesday, assuming we know who the president is and it doesn't take weeks. The day after we find out, you wake up in the morning, here's what you're gonna do. If you're with your family, you're gonna give them a hug and a kiss and get them dressed and get them to school. And then you gotta figure out how to pick them up from school. And you gotta figure out dinner. And you know what happens? Life continues. And you decide the quality of your life. That's it. You decide what your experience will be like, the quality of what your family will be like. And there will be many people, if you turn the TV on, it's so easy to be sucked into this, that it becomes, woe is us, and the sky is falling, and how are we ever gonna recover? The temptation in the world is to put our hope and security in anything else. And I can tell you this, no matter what happens Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever it's finally decided, God is not surprised. It's not as though God is going like, hey Jesus, who are we gonna vote for? What do we want? Like which platform do we like? Like who's gonna be the better leader of the free world? This is important, and this dictates this summer we went through Revelation. Revelation was written 2,000 years ago, and it's already, you know what that means? It's already decided. Like Tuesday does not affect God's plan for the future, for what happens. Elections have consequences, certainly, but let's not think that somehow our faith should be shattered because of an election. Instead, we look at this and we say, all right, Jesus is telling us to understand we're here just for a little bit of time. That's it, a little bit of time. How are you putting your trust in him and not anything else, whether it be politics or in our wealth, and to say, all right, how do I use my life and my resources and where God has put me in life, how do I use that to invest in other people? As we talk about money, it's not about like how do I get more and what's the best way to do this and how much should I be tithing versus keeping versus saving? Like, all right, we'll have those conversations, but here's the honest truth is this: you are a manager of your money, not an owner. You manage it. You don't own your money, which means you should be asking this question: how can I best manage my money for what's most important? When we read stories like this, we see this parable, here's what Jesus is saying: how are you gonna manage your money for what's most important? When it's all said and done and there's a service about you and people telling stories about you, what kind of stories do you want them to tell? I imagine what you don't want is, man, if there was a new toy, he bought it. If there was a new thing, she made sure she had it. She always had the coolest new stuff. He always had the coolest new things. I imagine the stories you want are, man, they were generous when they didn't have to be. Like, there was something about them that they didn't buy the lie. They didn't buy into this, I just need more stuff to be happy. They were most happy when they were giving and helping other people. You kidding me? I want those kind, like those are the stories that if people share about you, oh, you did, well done. Well done, managing your little bit of resources for your little bit of time because you invested in stories, not in stuff. Would you do this? Would you stand with me and we'll worship and then be done and come back next week and as we talk more about money. We built a foundation now that we are managers, not owners. Okay, so now what do I do with how do I manage my money well? Lord, we thank you. We thank you for your word. Jesus, we thank you for weird parables like this in which the bad guy is teaching us a lesson about what it means to use our worldly wealth to invest in people. Will you help us and remind us that we are managing our stuff. We don't own it. We are managing our money. We don't own it. And so help us to be good managers, good stewards with what you've given us so that we can invest in people. I pray this in Jesus' name. If you would like prayer, maybe prayer about money and about finances, maybe you have to make a new financial decision and you're like, I don't know what to do. We would love to pray with you and pray for you. And in the blue corners here, we'll have people who will be praying for you over this next song. If you want to stay and pray longer, certainly. But as a church, as people, you and I, we spend money every day. And so my prayer, my hope is that all of us will look at our money and say, all right, Lord, how can I best manage my money? Let's worship the Lord together.